My Hero Academia has 2 chapters remaining at the time of writing this, and by the time this video is released, there will only be one singular solitary chapter left of this story. The 5th of August, that's the day that it will all come to an end after 430 chapters in total, so close to being exactly 10 years of serialization, 10 years and 29 days to be exact. An anime airing across 8 years, 7 seasons and counting, with 4 movies and a spin-off manga. So before it's all over, let's just talk, not review and critique. It's just that since I've been a fan of anime and manga, My Hero has been one of the very few series, and maybe the only long-running series, that I've been around for, been a reader of or a watcher of from its early days all the way through to the end, compared to like any of the big 3, say, that have been around for decades. Long before I was a fan, and maybe even ended before I was a fan. And I would say that My Hero Academia is a pretty big name, especially amongst the Western audience, so let's talk about it before it's all said and done. Anime is weird, is what I thought before I had watched any. My first 3, if I remember correctly, recommended by friends and family were Attack on Titan, Full Metal Alchemist, the original anime as well as Brotherhood, and Tokyo Ghoul. Not what I was expecting. Attack on Titan especially, because it genuinely gave me nightmares. So first impressions, apart from them being each amazing stories in their own right, they were nothing like the image I had built up in my head of what anime looks like. You know, the huge eyes, weird body proportions, high-pitched voices, and so on and so forth. Then step up, another recommendation which just so happens to contain each and every one of those things I just listed. I did watch it, well obviously, otherwise I wouldn't be able to make this video. I watched it because it wasn't like I could pick and choose what to watch. Well, I could pick and choose, but I thought, paraphrasing here, am I really gonna let such little things be the reason I don't watch a show? That would be dumb. That would be really, really dumb. One can even say that would have been cowardly of me. I enjoyed the heck out of it, and for at least a few months I was obsessed with the Yusei Run OST. I was watching the Nomu fight on replay, I was watching on YouTube. Every Yusei Run goes with anything video I could find. I remember watching the Muscular fight for the first time, the United States of Smash for the first time. You know, if All Might was on screen in his buff form, I was happy. A badass, absurdly strong teacher slash father figure, an S tier character archetype for me. The sports festival, how could I forget the sports festival, the cubes, everyone remembers the cubes. You know, here's one funny thing, the scene on the rooftop where Midoriya sees All Might's slim down form for the first time. When that happened and before the explanation had been given, my instant response was, All Might has to be the bad guy, or All Might is a terrible person. I'm guessing my train of thought was that if the #1 hero, the supposed greatest in the world, who's this symbol of all that is good, is keeping a secret of this magnitude, then surely that has to be just the tip of the iceberg. And you cannot convince me that skinny All Might does not look like a villain. Although I am happy it didn't turn out that way. Having All Might turn out to just be the embodiment of greatness with only pure intentions was great. And as you can tell, All Might is my favourite character. Midoriya is great as well. A side note on him, I have never been able to get behind calling him Deku ever since it became clear that it was used as an insult against him. Like, I understand him embracing it fully, like his weaknesses are actually his greatest strengths and such, and it makes sense and works well for the story. But I always thought, I'm not going to call you by a name that can be interpreted as an insult against you, so I've always called him by his name, Izuku or Midoriya, either one. It is such a weird thing to have an issue with, I fully get that. But you're the main character, you're striving to be the greatest hero, I am not going to belittle you by any means. And one more point from my side of things, I switched to the manga when the 4th season finished airing, and I've been reading weekly ever since. But I still also kept up with the anime as well, although I'm not fully caught up with season 7 yet. I have this weird thing of always watching the anime as well, even when I catch up to a manga, because I don't want to neglect the media that originally got me into whatever story it is. Like, on top of the mangas, I still watch One Piece weekly. I've watched Record of Ragnarok, including the 2nd season, even if that anime adaptation is nowhere the best. like respecting the roots, even though the manga is almost always the original, but it doesn't matter. Now moving on, I've made a video recently about Demon Slayer and its huge popularity and impact on the industry, anime and manga, and how you've had Dragon Ball, then the big three, and in the modern day the spike in new anime fans globally or the West specifically can be attributed to Attack on Titan firstly, in the 2010s, which brought new eyes for the insane story, and Demon Slayer in 2019, which, well, the statistics speak for themselves. And from my point of view, in between them are two more very important stories, One Punch Man in 2015 and of course My Hero Academia in 2016. Two superhero-centric stories, and I've never thought about this before, but maybe the reach of each of these respective anime was helped by the fact that the superhero Marvel movie craze was not at its peak, since that was definitely Infinity War and Endgame, but it was already dominating the movie scene and still growing, so the superhero genre was going very strong at the time. And all I'm about to say is not factual, I want to make that completely clear. This is just how things looked from my perspective from around 7 or 8 years ago, meaning my words are not at all reliable, so away from all the names being thrown at me that were already established, like Attack on Titan, Full Metal Alchemist and Tokyo Ghoul, One Punch Man and My Hero Academia were two new anime that everyone around me who watched anime were talking about and sticking with My Hero. I feel like the biggest indicator of its popularity is the unofficial side of things. You see everywhere that people are trying to make the new big three or the new Gen 3, which I'm not a fan of, since there was, is and always will be one original big three. But MHA was included in all of those hypothetical successor groups. Even now, some people are still calling it a new gen, even though it's been 10 years since it released, which I interpret as other people interpreting that anything before the late 2000s is old gen and anything after that is new gen, which could mean that MHA was one of the faces of new gen anime. And also, it's a very good starter anime for anyone getting into it for the first time. That's if you want to start them off with something calm and not too crazy. Same thing applies with One Punch Man as well, unless you want to throw them straight into the deep end, which is what happened to me. But with My Hero Academia, there's an unavoidable topic that no one wants to talk about, including me. No one likes talking about it, which is the supposed decline of the series. Whether it actually did decline in terms of, say, popularity, I can't really say since I'm not really a part of the fandom, but it's something that many people have talked about. I would hazard a guess and say that this would have begun around the end of the 4th season and start of the 5th season of the anime. So the Gentle Criminal School Festival arc and the Joint Training arcs respectively, since although there are fights in those arcs, coming off of All Might versus All for One in the 3rd season and then Midoriya versus Overhaul in the first half of the 4th season, I don't think the two arcs back to back as well that followed would have been able to captivate people as much as previously. And by this time, March 2021, there's new series out there that have taken the anime game to a whole nother level. So with season 5 and season 6, again I'm not fully caught up on season 7, but regardless, the animation hasn't been able to keep up with those newer series, and it's been said many times before, but we as anime fans are so spoiled. So whenever we see something new and flashy, then suddenly the old normality is not good enough. And I can't confirm this since I read it on Reddit, and you know that platform isn't quite a beacon of knowledge, but I read that the anime staff follow a schedule akin to that of a weekly anime, so they are continuously working on it. How true that is, I don't know, but I'm just putting it out there. And as for the manga, the Paranormal Liberation War arc did split opinions, I think. But that's it, that's the elephant in the room now addressed and out of the way. In my opinion, any decline in popularity shouldn't really be an issue for anyone, because if you're a fan, then you're a fan. Enjoy it wholeheartedly and don't let any outside noise interfere with that enjoyment. Unfortunately, there's also a T-Rex in the room that must be addressed. Like I said, I'm not really a part of the fandom, and I kind of just enjoyed the series by myself, and there's good reason for that, because the worst of the My Hero fandom is amongst the worst of any fandom. It is a vocal minority, of course, just like for any other series, but when you have the author receiving death threats, even though those threats weren't really ever going to lead anything, it's not really something to make light of. This isn't something exclusive to My Hero. I don't want to throw it under the bus, because it's something that does happen in other series, but it's also something that you can't really ignore. And something else is that the majority of this story's cast is made up of school kids. Unfortunately, that vocal minority doesn't seem to care, and while with all the shipping and beyond, very far beyond, I think you get the picture. It really is sad that a part of My Hero Academia's legacy will be the toxicity of the fanbase, especially when the vast majority are just normal fans like everyone else. But now that the sour topics are out of the way, let's try to end on a high note. The second half of the story may not have had the traction or attention of the first half, but regardless of what you think of the quality, it never lost itself along the way, I think. Maybe a few missteps here or there, but it stayed on the path and powered through right to the end. If you're an anime fan, then you 100% know the name My Hero Academia, and there's good reason for that. Be it the characters, the powers, the colors, the themes it teaches. You know, when it was announced that there was only going to be 5 chapters left, it was really unexpected because, like I said, it was one of my first anime, so it's been there from the start of the journey all the way up until now. 8 years, which may not seem like a lot for some people, but that's 40% of my life. So it's kind of crazy that it's gonna be gone. It won't be a tearful goodbye for me. I won't be as sad to see it go as many others. It's just weird. It's going to be done so soon. I do wish that it lasted a little while longer, even if it was just the epilogue, since 5 chapters to me doesn't seem like enough. But it's an amazing story that if Horikoshi thinks it's time to call it, then so be it. I won't cry, but I will salute My Hero Academia.